following program is exclusively produced and distributed by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc., all rights reserved.
Hi, Golden Age film fanatics, and welcome to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. My name is Dick Dinman, and our goal is to become your exclusive guide to the very best of the Golden Age classics coming out on DVD. We'll have reviews, breaking news of upcoming releases, plenty of surprise guests, and a special feature devoted to the great Golden Age film composers, which we call Cinemusic. So let's turn on the marquee and lights, camera, action.
It's time for Dick's Picks, in which I get to shine the spotlight on one of my Dick's Picks of the week. Fans of macabre masterworks rejoice, because today I offer up two just-released spooky classics that couldn't possibly be more different from each other. First, we have the murderous comedy classic Arsenic Old Lace, which features a bravura performance from an unrestrained Cary Grant, backed by an amazing supporting cast that ladles on yawks and shocks in equal measure. In this bizarre tale of two sweet old ladies whose hobby is murder, and is highlighted by a shimmering transfer from the Criterion Collection, sure to delight fans of this frightfully funny Warner Brothers comedy classic. Then there's the incredible Warner Archive Blu-ray release of the Oscar-winning 1931 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which for my money is the single greatest horror classic ever released, in an amazing transfer that highlights the sheer innovative brilliance of Ruben Amulian's groundbreaking direction. Arsenic and Old Lace from the Criterion Collection, and 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from the Warner Archive are now available to thrill and chill you, even as we speak. Stay tuned for more Dick's Picks, coming up on DVD Classics Corner on the Air very soon. It'll be no surprise to my listeners that today's guest on my show is no one else but the popular and esteemed home video pioneer and Warner Media Library historian, George Feltenstein, who has been my most requested guest on my show since its inception 17 years ago, and has graced my show more than anyone else. Please join me in re-welcoming George Feltenstein. George Feltenstein, welcome back for the billionth time to your second home. So great to have you back again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm honored to be here, and I've missed our conversations, and I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, good. The excitement is from this end, too. Well, first of all, I want to discuss the Criterion Collection's fantastic transfer of a film called Arsenic and Old Lace. And first of all, I want to get your opinion of Frank Capra's Arsenic and Old Lace. How do you feel about the movie?
I think it is a favorite, and it is so broadly beloved by, continual generations of people, and I figured out why. This is a play that is still performed ubiquitously in high schools.
Yeah.
And high school productions of this play are abundant, and I think people are exposed to it at a very young age at the school level.
Yeah.
This is a theory I have. I can't prove it. But the most important thing I feel is that our cinema heritage and a passion for it be cultivated and developed with young people, with people at high school and college age, and so they can discover, a century of film that preceded them. Mm-hmm. And having something like that says, oh, this is a really entertaining play, and there was a movie? Oh, I want to see the movie. Well, you haven't actually been able to see it look great until now.
Right.
Because what Criterion has done, and they did the work, of course, in concert with our folks, because we pulled in the original negative, and it was scanned and went to Criterion, and of course, Criterion are our partners, and they're really like family to me personally. And they really wanted to do their magic with this title. And of course, not only is the film look wonderful, but I love everything about the release. Even the cover is so creative.
Right. Right.
It's very clever.
Yes.
Because, my personal preference is, of course, original key art. That's what I thrive on, and it's what I love to see. But I love what they do in coming up with new art, especially for a film of this age, that they could come up with something really clever that doesn't feel anachronistic.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it's a recreation of 1940s key art, but it also feels totally appropriate. And it's a beautifully put together package, and it just glistens.
Well, I could not agree with you more. But I have to tell you, I am not a particular Frank Capra fan. But Arsenic and Old Lace is in my top 5 greatest comedies of all time. I think that Capra did an absolutely flawless and fantastic job on this film. I must have seen it 15, maybe 20 times. I just cannot contain my delight at how gorgeous it looks. And I have to tell you this, I have a big disagreement with Cary Grant. I saw Cary Grant in the first evening with Cary Grant in Orange County. And whenever Arsenic and Old Lace was brought up, he never missed an opportunity to snipe at his own performance, almost as if he was embarrassed by it. And I find this incredible, because his performance is to me, I would categorize it as maybe one of his 3 or 4 greatest comedy performances.
Yeah, I put it right up there with Bringing Up Baby,
His Girl Friday,
and Awful Truth,
yeah,
and My Favorite Wife.
Yeah.
I mean, he excelled at comedy, but he's terrific in this film.
He is.
And everybody is.
Well, everybody is. But what's interesting is included on the Criterion release of Arsenic and Old Lace is a radio play that was done I believe in the early 50s with Boris Karloff recreating his original theater role.
Right.
And in the role of Mortimer, Cary Grant's role, is Donald Woods. nothing Donald Woods does is funny. The part just lies there. Now, and I know that Alan Jocelyn did it on Broadway, and Alan Jocelyn was brilliant at pomposity, and I'm guessing that he might have been funny on his own level, but it's a part that if you don't have the chops, it just lies there. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just lies there. And what Cary Grant does, I mean, some of his takes are so funny that I never stop laughing at them. But of course, we have to look at that cast: Raymond Massey, Peter Lorre, Jack Carson, James Gleason, Edward Everett Horton. From the play, Josephine Hull, Jean Adair, and John Alexander. Now, what do you think about Raymond Massey's performance in a role that was played on Broadway?
By Karloff.
By Karloff. What do you think of his performance?
It's shockingly wonderful because you don't think of him as a comic actor by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Especially in light of the fact that we just put out Abe Lincoln in Illinois, which he's spectacular in.
Yeah.
But it was Karloff's commitment to the stage play on Broadway that precluded him from being in the film. And the release of the film was held up, I believe, contractually until a certain point, like either when the play actually closed.
That was the deal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I also know that Jack Warner held back and delayed releases during the war of a lot of big films because of the war, and he wanted to make more of his money back.
Well, and for the time
after the war, but I don't think this was one of those. It was the contractual.
No. He had spent so much money on the rights to Arsenic and Old Lace that he wanted it released. He would have loved it to be released a few months after it was shot. It frustrated him immensely. My take on Raymond Massey is, and I looked over Raymond Massey's filmography, I couldn't find any comedies. Massey, to my mind, probably had no sense of humor. He plays it totally straight, and for me, that's what makes it hilarious. Because, for instance, the scene where Massey and Peter Lorre are comparing murders with the old ladies. Massey plays it totally straight, and he's hilarious in it. He doesn't mug. I happen to think if you had to replace Boris Karloff, Raymond Massey is the perfect choice. And you know, I heard, and this to me is outrageous, is the fact that for a time they were considering Humphrey Bogart for the role.
Huh.
And it was never offered to Bogart, but I think Bogart certainly would have turned it down at that point in his career if he had been offered it. It would have been a big mistake for him to do it. I mean, this is not... He did one horror film. What was that? Dr. X? What was that?
The Return of Dr. X.
Yeah.
And he was also in The Amazing Dr. Clitterhouse, which was not as much of a horror film.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit, on the border of it.
Yeah.
But, this would not have been right for him at all.
No.
It was actually serendipitous that Raymond Massey was cast, and I remember I think when I was in high school and I was watching this movie with my friends, and we all hadn't seen the movie before, and
Yeah.
Raymond Massey says he said I looked like Boris Karloff. And, you know, we understood the in-joke, and we were big Karloff fans.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it has the DNA of Warner Brothers of the era on it, you know, with it just astoundingly perfect writing. It's really a unique stage comedy in that it holds up so well, and it doesn't really date
Not
in the
at all.
sense that it just works, and everybody in the picture is marvelous.
Who are your
And,
who are your favorites of the supporting actors? I have two.
Well, Josephine Hull,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, she's a special favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I think she's really, really terrific.
Yes. Anyone else? Well,
Well-
they're all great.
They're all terrific. That she pops into my mind as really, you know, worthy of star billing if she wasn't a supporting player.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If I had to pick out a favorite of the supporting cast, it would probably be Peter Lorre. Because Peter Lorre is, to me, hilarious in the role. His timing, I wish he had done more comedy. I mean, he worked for Reuben Mamoulian in Silk Stockings
Right.
decades later, and he's hilarious in it. But in this, he's absolutely brilliant. And for me also, and I read a New York Times review accusing him of Jack Carson of mugging. Well, if that's mugging, I want more. Because for me, Carson is just laugh out loud hilarious in this film. I think, for me, Jack Carson is one of the most underrated actors of all time. The fact that he wasn't nominated for The Easy Way, or Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, or A Star Is Born, always amazes me.
Well, you know, I would say, especially A Star Is Born, I mean, because he's loathsome. If you compare him in A Star Is Born to Lionel Stander in the
No comparison.
1937 original,
Yeah.
Lionel Stander plays a pretty awful person.
Yeah.
But Jack Carson is just despicable and disgusting.
Yeah.
And that's the way the character was written.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's one of his I think it's probably his finest hour on the screen. It's hard to play, you know, somebody who's truly evil.
Yeah.
And when he, you know, has that scene in the bar with James Mason afterwards, you know, it's so much more intense and painful than the same scene between Frederick March and Lionel Stander in the original.
Criterion has done a fantastic job on this film, and I think we both feel that this is one of the most unique and funniest movies ever made. I hate to put words in your mouth, but I think we're in total agreement here.
Oh, absolutely, without question.
And after a break, we're going to go to the 1931 Warner Archive release of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And we'll be right back after this.
We pause now for station identification.
DVD Classics Corner on the Air is exclusively produced and released by Dick Dinman's Double D Productions, Inc. All rights reserved. We're back with George Feltenstein. And George, my jaw dropped when I saw that release of the 1931 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I never expected it to look remotely like this. This is easily, by leaps and bounds for me, the best early 30s transfer of any film I've ever seen, which leads me to ask you, what elements did Paramount turn over to MGM when MGM wanted to remake it with Spencer Tracy?
Well, they turned over the original camera negative, which had been cut for the post-production code reissue. And so it was missing 17 minutes of footage. And MGM suppressed this version from the time they bought it, as well as the John Barrymore 1920. They bought that as well. They kept them under lock and key and wouldn't let them be shown because they didn't want anything to take away from Spencer Tracy's remake.
Yeah.
And this didn't just happen to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from Paramount. This also happened to the 36 Showboat, and it also happened to Roberta.
Gaslight.
Yeah. Well, the British Gaslight, yes, and but I don't think that was as hard to see, the British Gaslight. I don't think that was as hard to see as these others, which, MGM took the earlier studio's original version and kept it out of distribution. Paramount turned over to MGM was the original camera negative, which had been cut, and then a nitrate lavender, which is very much like a fine-grained master positive, of the long version.
So that's where you got the additional 17 minutes for this release, I guess.
Yes, except the nitrate lavender was starting to decompose. So a dupe negative was made from that. And those were the two sources we worked from.
I've never seen a film of the early 30s. We're talking about 1931. Look
91 years old, yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. And I have to now say that of all the horror films, this has now become my absolute favorite. Reuben Mamoulian is the star of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. What he did in 1931 is show everyone else that talkies could be just as fluid as silent films.
Well, and he's so underappreciated as a filmmaker.
Terribly.
It's astounding if you look at the 1929 Paramount film Applause with Helen Morgan. This is right on the cusp
Yeah, I've never
of
seen
the
it.
introduction of sound. Oh, you must, because this film was shot in New York, using Paramount's Astoria Studios, and he was moving the camera and doing all sorts of things with sound.
Wow.
At a time where everybody else kept the camera static.
Yeah.
And he was remarkably talented. And then he goes to the stage and directs huge, monumental landmarks in the history of the theater.
Yeah.
Porgy and Bess,
Oklahoma.
which of course was followed by Oklahoma.
Yeah.
My gosh.
A few months ago, you released a beautiful copy of the Spencer Tracy Ingrid Bergman 1940 version, which looked great. Now, I've read a few articles in the last few days, and the misinformation totally floored me, because some of these articles stated incorrectly that Spencer Tracy's version was a shot-by-shot remake of the Mamoulian version, and this is, it's just wrong. It's not true.
You're completely right.
Yeah. How would you compare the Mamoulian Frederick March version to the Spencer Tracy Victor Fleming version? Which do you prefer? It's like asking which of your babies do you prefer?
Well, kind of. In some ways, I think the Mamoulian Frederick March version holds a much more important place in film history.
Yeah.
Because it is, as is pointed out by both commentaries that are on the disc, both the archival commentary that was on the DVD done by Greg Mank and the new commentary done by Konstantin Nazar and Steve Haberman. Mm-hmm. They all say basically that you have in that period Frankenstein and Dracula from Universal, but equally as horrific, coming from the same era, and equally as important, and I'll even go so far as to say possibly more important, is this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. What an astounding film. Yeah. The cinematic achievement of it, the horrifying aspects of it, the poignancy, Frederick March's performance, and Miriam Hopkins' performance.
Indeed.
Are absolutely magnetizing. Now, that's not to say that the Fleming version, the MGM version, in my opinion, isn't a great film. I think it is. I think it is also representative of what made MGM the Tiffany of studios, you know. Yeah. The Mamoulian is far more frightening. It's far more graphic. It was also made before the production code, and that allowed the film to really take on a much more deeply disturbing film that absolutely, you know, in watching this new master, as we were working on it, and when it was finally all done and so immaculate and, you know, so true to its form, and yet no one has ever seen it look this good.
No.
And the response has been overwhelming. All of the reviewers and the critics and consumers, everybody I've heard from, it's been just outright raves. And as it should be, this is literally a frame-by-frame restoration.
Yeah,
That's why it took such a long time to come out.
Well, the bottom line is, to my listeners, if you want an absolutely perfect double feature, Arsenic and Old Lace from the Criterion Collection, plus the original 1931 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, looking as it's never looked before. And if you're still awake, which you will be after these two films, why not throw in the 1940 version with Spencer Tracy and Ingrid Bergman? I just can't praise the work of the Criterion Collection and the Warner Archive Collection more highly. I'm constantly astounded at the quality of the work you do, and all I can say is, George, please keep it up and keep 'em coming.
Well, that is the intention, and I have publicly stated elsewhere that, you know, this has been a difficult, constricted year for us, as there have been huge reductions in our staffing due to the changes at the company and ownership and so forth and so on. Now we have new owners who are much more supportive of our incredible library and making it the best that it can be. So we're shifting back into higher gear, and hopefully next year's release schedule will be similar in number, and of course everything dedicated to the best possible quality, but to be more like what we had in 2021.
Well, you can bet that next year you're going to have to get a cast for your arm, because I'll be twisting it constantly to get you back on the show.
Well, and there's going to be a lot of surprises, because next year is the 100th birthday of Warner Brothers. And so there will be, of course, films from our library from the other portions. There will be lots of MGM and lots of RKO and so forth, but you will also be getting some remarkable films from the history of Warner Brothers that I think are going to make people very, very happy.
Oh.
So I'm excited to see what people think when they see what's coming.
Oh.
Because a lot of what's coming is representative of things that we have been constantly getting requests for.
Well,
So it will be very much reflective of the people's choice, and I'm very happy about that.
well, lots of reasons to look forward to
Absolutely.
next year, right? And thank you so much, George, with your ridiculously busy schedule, for taking the time to appear on this show.
It is always a pleasure and a delight, Dick. Thank you so much.
It's time for Dick's Picks, in which I get to shine the spotlight on one of my Dick's Picks of the week. And the jury is in with an enthusiastic thumbs up as Mickey Spillane's two-fisted private detective Mike Hammer, played by Biff Elliott, makes his film debut in I, the Jury, now available in stunning 4K Blu-ray and 3D Blu-ray in a new special limited edition. Now, at the time I, the Jury was adapted for the 3D silver screen in 1953, Mickey Spillane was the best-selling mystery writer in the world, and producer Victor Seville bought the rights to I, the Jury, and secured the services of director of photography John Alton, the master of light and shadows, to lens this iconic film noir, as well as two-time Oscar-winning composer Franz Waxman to produce the score. Co-starring Preston Foster and the luminous Peggy Castle, I, the Jury also boasts solid support from Alan Reed, John Quaylen, Tom Powers, Margaret Sheridan, Mary Anderson, Nesta Paiva, Joe Besser, and Elijah Cook Jr. I, the Jury, and the wonder of 4K and 3D is now available everywhere, even as we speak.
Stay tuned for more Dick's Picks, coming up on DVD Classics Corner on the Air very soon. Well, that's my show for today. DVD Classics Corner on the Air is conceived, written, produced, and directed by me, Double D. And if you'd like to hear some of my older vintage shows, please go to www.dvdclassicscorner.net, where in addition to the broadcasts, you'll find hundreds of my print reviews of classic DVD releases. So, until next week,
keep well, keep happy, and keep listening.